So hello, I'm here to discuss certain things about high school level research and how you should approach it, especially in the Philippine context. Now, I know research can be very intimidating for a lot of people, but I want to encourage a lot more people into getting into research because it's not really that complicated of a task. It may be overwhelming because of the amount of work that you need to do in high school in the Philippines. However, having it as a good hobby can definitely benefit you in the long run, especially academically and professionally. So, why should you get involved in student research? Getting involved in student research can serve a variety of purposes. That includes contributing to the body of knowledge, networking, sharing your ideas with other people, getting better grades and more scholarship grants, and contributing to problems of society such as the SDGs, in terms of renewable energy and other aspects of society that you don't know you can actually contribute to with research. Now, this is because the research is usually confined within an institution. However, you can actually publish your paper in a variety of ways that you may not know of. This is because research is very transformative and it can actually be used, replicated, and studied by other people if they want to replicate certain ideas or uh, results that you have discovered for yourself. So, in the Philippine context, there exists a lot of stigmas on research, and I'm sure this is not just in the Philippines setting. And it kind of disheartens me, but there are a lot of causes or roots that uh, lead to this effect and stigma onto academic research and academic writing in the Philippines. But I think it stems all from the fear of a research defense. In research, a defense is just one part of the actual paper itself. In writing a PhD thesis, this may be the final uh, aspect of your paper. However, when writing a paper, it should not be the entire focus of the research process. There exists a bunch of opportunities in research, particularly in scholarship grants. Now, I'm not sure if there exist scholarship grants in the Big Four for research, but these institutions are research facilities as well. In international schools and international universities, in particular, like Oxford, Cambridge, and the other Australian, New Zealand based universities, they actually accept a bunch of students who do research and can contribute to the field well. We also have a bunch of Filipino scientists abroad working in uh, research facilities, institutions, the Max Planck Institute, and so on and so forth. This could give you a higher advantage in terms of the academia, and it can also lead to a better professional career. So let's discuss certain aspects about junior level research that you may need to take note of. So research is actually supplementary or required depending on your institution. So in typical K-12 institutions, they will have research in the science subject of grade 10. However, it may be a choice of the institution to add it as an actual subject. On the contrary, in science high school institutions, which are specialized schools for STEM students in the Philippines in junior high school level, it is required from grade 7 to 10 and may also have additional subjects that aid or pertain to the same subject or pertain to a research subject in hopes of enriching students as STEM students, if that makes any sense. And then moving on to regular and private schools, they may encounter their first experience of research during science of grade 10, as mentioned before. And one other thing to note of is that the Department of Education in the Philippines hosts an annual science and technology fair for both junior and senior high school level students, which everyone can basically participate in as long as their institution agrees to. In senior high school level research, this is where research gets more focused or gets a bigger spotlight in terms of the academic lens. So in senior high school level, two research units are required as core subjects of the senior high school curriculum, alongside the subject capstone if you are in science, technology, engineering strand. I also encourage inter-school research events and fairs through various institutions, including the pre-mentioned Science and Technology Fair. So as for research competitions, this is a basic roadmap of how the Department of Education typically enacts the Science and Technology Fair. So first, a school selects a group of students that may participate in what we call the Division Science and Technology Fair in various categories that includes life science, robotics, and other things to note of. But most of these are actually focused on the sciences or natural sciences. Next is we have the Regional Science and Technology Fair, in which within your region, for example, the NCR, all the schools that are selected from their municipalities in the Division Science and Technology Fair will participate in regionals in preparation for the nationals. And I know you think, I know you know that where this is going. The final one we have is the International Science and Engineering Fair, which is basically the holy grail of this entire competition thing, in which students will present their findings, their outputs, their products internationally in a very, very big research conference. So one thing to take note of when doing or conducting research is that the scientific method is applicable to all fields of study, whether that may be in social sciences, in law, in business, in engineering, in natural sciences. And it all starts from a simple observation of a phenomena or an object, in which we identify certain aspects about that object, including its variables and the things that affect it, basically. And from that, we include a hypothesis, in which we infer certain uh, parameters to the object that we observe and see if there are certain differences if we change certain parameters of that variable through the process of experimentation, in which we conduct manipulation of independent variables to test how a dependent variable changes. And after that, we get results in which these results are undergo a process we call data analysis or statistical treatment, depending on how you approach it. In qualitative studies, we utilize other methodologies such as thematic analysis in particular, which is very common in qualitative research, and that is garnered through the process of interviewing. However, when you have quantitative or numerical data, and especially is very common in natural sciences, they typically use statistical treatment, and which we, after the process of analysis, we interpret that data and derive a conclusion that answers certain things about our hypothesis, whether it disproves or proves our hypothesis, and we answer uh, research questions within the confines of the paper. So we define certain research questions during the process of creating our hypothesis, and which it will be prepared to be answered by the experimentation and analysis process. And after that, in the conclusion, we summarize every single detail we found in hopes that other researchers will study our paper and our contributions to the field once again in an endless cycle of contributing to the body of knowledge. So, when writing a thesis, it's very important to observe that a research or an academic paper is not an essay. We should observe technical writing and completely avoid adjectives that are unnecessary or are more on narrative to our paper. This is because it adds another uh, layer of subjectivity onto our paper that we don't want others to find. And although using the first person is actually quite an acceptable uh, custom in research writing, especially internationally, in the Philippines, it's still not encouraged. So you should take note that you should also always pertain to yourself in the third person view. I recommend taking technical writing classes, or if you are unable to take those classes, you may self-study technical writing, uh, which is basically just a way of describing writing that is more objective than your typical paper or an essay, and is always on to the point. I also recommend to make great use of generative AI effectively because it has absolutely great applications for assessing variables, treatment methods that you will use for those variables and for your data, and technical frameworks, conceptual frameworks, theoretical frameworks, and assessing certain things about your paper that you may overlook. So before you start doing a research, you must first locate a topic. In research in particular, it's very important to take note that you must have existing knowledge on your topic of interest, else it will be very difficult to work on it. What you shouldn't do when creating a research paper is going and starting from the topic of interest and then going uh, directly onto your research title without preparation for literature. This is because not having an understanding of scientific literature and what exists currently in your field will prove or present some caveats to you while you're writing your paper and in your methodologies as well. So which is why I recommend selecting a topic of interest and then reading literature first. This is a vital flaw that some researchers or research advisors fail to present to their students, is that they start from a topic of interest and then they uh, suggest that they make a research title immediately after the topic of interest, which is quite incorrect because not having an understanding or an intuitive understanding of literature will likely handicap the student in terms of one, they do not know if their study is novel at all, two, they cannot stand on the shoulders of giants, and three, they may not have the best scientific basis for all their claims for their research title. Because the research title is supposed to include your variables and basically whatever process you will do onto that variable so that researchers of the future may read your paper again and may replicate it for another purpose. So let's move on to some important tips. Some papers are unnecessarily harder to understand because of scientific jargon. Now, this is intentional for other purposes, and especially if we're working with jargon, it's much easier to understand when you're a deep professional of that field. However, lay people or those people who are just getting into research will likely struggle to understand these papers. But I want you to take note that these papers are actually quite simple in terms of what they're actually pertaining to, in spite of their very complicated language. So I want you to not get overwhelmed quickly by scientific jargon. I want you to thoroughly understand certain concepts about that paper because eventually you will know how to read scientific papers much faster than it is actually possible. For example, if you were searching for certain ideas, you would know that they will be in the methodology process. Or, for example, you're searching for certain ideas that you wish to be proven, you can search for that in the background or the results. Having a deeper understanding of how research sections work will greatly enhance and make you more efficient in locating certain ideas about your research. Another thing is to not use AI without understanding your topic thoroughly. So again, I highlight that you must have an intuitive, a very thorough understanding of your topic before you use any supplementary tools, aside from, of course, scientific literature, which is basically the preliminary activity to conducting your entire study. And one thing is that I recommend actually exploring other fields that are unfamiliar to you. However, you must know that these come with certain consequences, that you must study these fields more uh, intuitively, especially if you're running on a deadline. You have to study certain aspects about the field that are most important. For example, we conducted a study on seismology and geophysics, and although we were not geologists, we took our time to extensively study scientific literature pertaining to certain geophysical laws, and we were able to derive an algorithm uh, which was then presented to a board of panels. So you can explore fields that are unfamiliar to you without necessarily having to gain a certain level of expertise yet. You just have to have the courage to explore that field and have to have the dedication to keep exploring that field until you finish your paper. So finally, I would like to reinstill a certain idea to you that you can do research as a hobby, but you can also do it for professional purposes. And when you find a skill that you're actually good at and you actually love, you will be very good at it. And it is a skill that is, when practiced and honed, you could be capable of doing great things, great contributions to your field of study. And I want research to basically evolve into something that is more commonly used, especially for students in the Philippines today. In the current state of the Philippines right now, in fact, we can make great changes in our generation through research, with research, and catching up with the education of what is available abroad. And so we benefit our country, our people, and eventually the whole world will benefit too. I would like to end the session with a quote by Saint Albert the Great, which is the patron saint of natural sciences. That is all for the session. I will eventually be discussing certain topics about research and about writing the paper itself soon. So this was a very brief introduction to Philippine and high school research, and I hope it can inspire at least some people into getting into research, especially in our context. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.